the news.
Germany has called for a financial rescue arrangement to be ready for Greece by a May the 19th debt deadline. The continuing uncertainty of the terms have pushed Athens' borrowing costs to a 12-year high. While Germany pays 3% to borrow, Greece finds itself now paying more than 9%. In the wake of Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou's call for help to get out of a deep debt crisis, Chancellor Angela Merkel said it's important that Greece prove it will take the necessary steps to get back its economic and financial strength in the longer term. She said it won't take just 1 year. The IMF usually agrees on 3-year programs. Greek efforts to reassure investors that aid will arrive in time to avert a Eurozone first sovereign debt default have proved unconvincing. This has raised speculation that a €45 billion EU IMF aid package should be bigger. Greeks are preparing for sustained austerity measures. Athens has already announced billions of euros in budget cuts, including tax hikes and public sector wage reductions. This has set off protests and strikes. The latest was of dock workers angry about moves to allow non-Greek cruise ships to moor at Greek ports without hiring Greek crews. Athens has played down concern over Berlin's backing for an IMF Eurozone rescue, a deal which faces domestic opposition in Germany.
Jarosław Kaczynski has announced plans to run for president in Poland's upcoming election. The vote in June has had to be called following the death of the incumbent, his twin brother Lech Kaczynski, in a plane crash earlier this month. The tragedy, in which 96 were killed, delivered a body blow to Poland's political elite and plunged the country into a week of deep mourning. It culminated in a state funeral for Lech Kaczynski and his wife, following which they were interred among Poland's historical elite in Wawel Cathedral in Krakow. Despite an upsurge of sympathy for the Kaczynski family, opinion polls still show acting President Bronisław Komorowski, the candidate of Poland's governing Civic Platform, as the most likely winner. Jarosław Kaczynski, who's also a former Prime Minister of Poland, will stand for his centre-right opposition Law and Justice Party. The crash happened when the Polish government plane came down just before landing in Smolensk in western Russia. The political and military delegation it was carrying was on its way to a memorial service for the Second World War Katyn massacre. Before the crash, polls rated Jarosław Kaczynski as the most distrusted politician in Poland. His centre-right party backs populist economic policies and favours a tough line towards Russia and the EU.
Hungary's next Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, has been celebrating his party's election win after Fidesz secured the largest majority since the fall of communism 20 years ago. Orban described the result as a revolution after his party ousted the socialist who had ruled for 8 years. Orban, who was PM from 1998 to 2002, later told reporters that his party would cut taxes to make Hungary's economy competitive once again. Fidesz won 2/3 of the seats up for grabs in Hungary's parliament, with the socialists losing almost half of their voters to other parties. But the centre-right's massive majority was not the only first in modern Hungarian politics. Gabi Jóna's Jobbik party posted the best ever showing by a far-right group, winning 47 seats. The Radical Nationalist Party tapped into voter fears over immigration by vowing to crack down on the country's Roma minority.
Seeking an end to a decades-old energy rift, Russian President Dmitry Medvedev visits Norway in an effort to finally unlock both countries' disputed gas and oil reserves. And Medvedev received the full royal treatment as he arrived in the Norwegian capital Oslo. The 2-day visit seeks to broker a deal over the Barents Sea, a maritime zone half the size of Germany and sandwiched between proven energy reserves in Norwegian and Russian waters. Moscow and Oslo have kept oil and gas exploration in the long-disputed sea on ice. And even though there are hopes of a thaw in each side's position, the prospects of a final accord are being played down. The Russian side of the Barents Sea alone, a huge reservoir, is believed to hold enough gas to supply global demand for a year. 2 promising energy fields are also thought to lie on the Norwegian side.
No, al centro, Roberto.
Italian Premier Silvio Berlusconi has insisted the South Stream gas pipeline will guarantee vital supplies to Europe. Berlusconi's comments came as he welcomed Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin for talks in northern Italy. The 2 leaders were meeting to seal key economic and energy deals. Berlusconi praised Russia as a reliable partner.
South Stream is
important because it guarantees the opportunities to get Russian gas when there are cuts. For instance, what happened recently in Ukraine. This is an opportunity to secure supply, Berlusconi said.
In Ucraina, un paese che non ha ancora una stabilizzazione politica che ci può lasciare tranquilli.
South Stream aims to transport Russian natural gas to the Black Sea, to Bulgaria and further to Italy and Austria. Also high on the agenda was Italy's nuclear power programme. Rome and Moscow officially signed agreements which will see both countries cooperating in the atomic energy sector.
Sudan has chosen to re-elect President Omar al-Bashir, despite the fact he faces war crimes charges over Darfur. Election officials say Bashir, who is wanted by the International Criminal Court, won 68% of the vote. But his victory was marred by the withdrawal of many credible rivals and allegations of voting fraud. Observers say the election fell well below international standards. Bashir controls much of the Islamic-leaning north of Sudan, while the semi-autonomous Christian south will be run by Salva Kiir, who picked up 93% of a separate regional vote. Kiir, a former rebel leader, is now expected to form a coalition with his one-time foe Bashir. Kiir wants independence for the south and will hold a referendum in 2011. Decades of civil war were brought to an end in 2005 with the signing of a peace deal between the north and the south. The International Criminal Court, however, still has a warrant out for Bashir's arrest over allegations he ordered a campaign of murder, torture and rape in Darfur. The 66-year-old denies all charges.
A suspected al-Qaeda suicide bomber has targeted a convoy carrying the British ambassador in Yemen, killing himself and injuring 3 others. Ambassador Tim Torlott was not hurt in the blast. 2 security officials were wounded, along with a bystander. The attack happened just outside the Yemeni capital of Sana'a, as the ambassador was on his way to the embassy this morning. So far, no one has claimed responsibility. There was a lot of damage to windows and buildings. The windows of all the shops blew out into the street. Some cars were damaged as well. Iraq's Interior Ministry said the attack bore the hallmarks of al-Qaeda, the regional wing of which is based in Yemen. The Yemeni authorities are investigating the area of the blast, which has been cordoned off. 24 years to the day since it exploded, reactor number 4 at Chernobyl in Ukraine is still leaking radiation. Time, rain and stagnant water have weathered the concrete shield covering the site of the nuclear blast. Only security officials are allowed to enter the 30-kilometre exclusion zone around Chernobyl. Above 30 on the monitor indicates a dangerous level of radiation, he explains. And here it's already showing 165. The disaster took place in the early hours of April the 26th, 1986, when the reactor exploded, contaminating the then Soviet states of Ukraine, Russia and Belarus. The UN's put the death toll from contamination at around 4,000, but this is disputed by NGOs involved at the site. This is the new steel skin which will cover the reactor, built by 2 French companies. At 18,000 tons, it will be 2.5 times as heavy as the Eiffel Tower. The Chernobyl anniversary coincides with a swathe of anti-nuclear demonstrations across Europe. Here in Hamburg, more than 100,000 people joined hands to form a human chain to protest against the use of nuclear energy.